Well, certainly, without question, the research process is clearly a strong collaboration between clinician investigators, patients, and scientists such as Raj that are really looking at the mechanistic science, trying to understand the biology of the disease. I always view that it's kind of multiple streams of research in parallel, with many labs around the world looking at different aspects of this. But certainly, the work you presented is very intriguing, and certainly, very important to study. But, you could think of the scientific process are multiple things kind of being tested in parallel as opposed to sequentially. Not that one scientist exhausts their ideas and then another scientist, kind of picks up that baton. It's somewhat of a kind of a marketplace of ideas as things get tested. But you're right. The more basic the question in terms of earlier in the biology, sometimes the more challenging it is to obtain funding. But let me hand it off to my colleagues here, who again, we all both collaborate with similar individuals, but also with different individuals in parallel. So Marina, of course, we're part of the MPN Research Consortium, which is a collaboration itself between laboratories and our clinical research. Marina, why don't you tell me a little bit about the consortium?
Good morning. So actually, exactly that's what I was thinking about as well. So I'll start with the MPN consortium. So this is a collaboration between multiple basic science researchers. Right now, it's a group of institutions in the U.S. and Canada called MPNRC, MPN Research Consortium. And the idea is that, the only way we can find treatments and cures for these diseases is if we have many people working together on different aspects of the disease. And so what we have is a number of institutions, a number of individuals who are doing basic research in laboratories, and it's based on also mouse models, like here, as well as samples from patients with MPNs, looking at different targets in the laboratory, and which generates idea for clinical trials that are also run by the research consortium. And so the way that we work is that the ideas that are generated in laboratories then lead to clinical trials where we test the ideas, and then as we get samples from patients as they're treated with whatever the agent is, then the samples also go back to laboratories where we are able to further study what happens in the cells, and how does it relate to what happens in the patient, and then further ideas are generated. And so, I think a lot of the agents that are currently in clinical trials that are sponsored by industry initially were generated from laboratories of people working in this consortium. And this is really how we move this field forward. And I think looking at the work here, very, very interesting, intriguing ideas, again, where we're taking mouse models and patient samples, testing different hypotheses, and then potentially coming up with a target that could be used as a medication, as a drug. And potentially, this is just one of the pathways that's important in MPN pathogenesis, in how the disease, happens in stem cells and how it results in the disease phenotype that we see. And typically, what we are realizing now is that we need to be able to target the stem cells where this process happens. We also potentially need to target the environment around the stem cells, which is typically the bone marrow itself. And probably the combination of these targets is what we need to really get to the root of the disease. And I think here what we saw was really intriguing work looking at metabolic pathways, which are clearly important in many different cancers, including MPNs. And this is a very important question because as a clinician, a lot of patients will ask me, what happened? Like, why did this happen to me? Is it something that I did? Is it something that I'm doing? And my answer is always, it's usually multiple factors that's involved, and it's definitely not something that you did or something necessarily that you're doing. It's just a bunch of different factors that come together, and that's why this disease happens to you specifically. And when patients ask me about diet, my answer is always, we don't know what is specifically the best diet for each individual patient. But the usual answer that I think is the best answer that we know right now is you need to have a balanced diet, right? Mediterranean style diet. I don't think that we necessarily recommend that patients restrict themselves to a very specific diet, but just a balanced, healthy Mediterranean style diet is what we recommend for patients with MPNs, and I think in general. So I think what's important to remember here is that, I think like you said, mice are not little people. And certainly these mice that are genetically altered are also not exact models of the MPNs. So what we see in these mouse models, and specifically, with very restricted diets, is it gives us a hint of what we should be looking for in patients, but it's not a direct pathway to the patient. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
Yeah, perfectly said. Morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be here today again. I'm from Houston, Texas. So I was looking at your fantastic presentation. I was commenting that everybody in Texas would have MPN with the amount of fat people take. So there must be something wrong with the idea completely. But that's not correct. MPN is such a complex disease with the integrated inflammation that might start way before we do see the disease, where a lot of, as we were heard yesterday from Dr. Mesa and everybody, patients with very early disease suffer tremendously with a lot of symptoms. They are clearly tied to the underlying inflammation and the process that may have started way, way before that nobody was even aware of. And that gets integrated with the whole cardiovascular risk, the thrombotic risk, the serious consequences, and so on and so forth. So therefore, it's tremendously difficult to develop a model that would work generously for everybody and for each single situation, because once we start looking at one model, then the next, from the different mechanism, filled in, and that's how it is in cancer, but how it is in the whole medicine. It's just the human body is just more complex mouse, pretty much. So that speaks about although we from US and we trying to collaborate from the research, the scientists, to the bench, to the patients. I do believe that these collaboration need to be more global, and the patient basis. I'm really super thankful to Peter, the global MPNs, and all of these efforts, because we have to more include people from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from everywhere, where they don't have the resources, nor they have the support from the companies or the governments to include, and they just suffer. And we could learn as a group and as a collaborator more, and there we really are very appreciative of our patients' advocacy and people like Peter and everybody. They do tremendous work to help us connect together and answer the questions that we see as a clinicians, but we see from the other side of the bench. So it is really important to us to raise the voice and tell us from your perspective that this is what is lacking, these are the answers that we don't have, and this is what we should be asking, and then we'll be, super happy to collaborate with like Ray and everybody else to really move on the needle in the research that goes more with the clinical needs. That's I think is very important for the whole community. I'm gonna pass it along to Israel.
Thank you. I echo everything's been said, and just how important these meetings are. Just talking to Rao earlier this morning, and I'm going to bother him with a whole bunch of questions during the break. This is how the collaborations are actually formed, believe it or not, in sort of informal circumstances and events like this. I'd just like to add one sort of an anecdote which doesn't have anything specifically to do with MPN, but I just think it's interesting, sort of food for thought, excuse the pun, which you weren't able to do, Rao, because you fed your mice chow, and then you fed them high-fat diet, and the mice were sacrificed. I came across a very interesting study, which wasn't in the MPN field. I'm not sure if anyone came across it as well. I think it was published in Science or one of the science journals in the last couple of months, where researchers similar to Rao, they fed their mice chow, which is regular mouse food, and then they fed them like a McDonald's type diet. They fed them a junk food diet for about 2 or 3 weeks. And of course, they put on weight and they became chubby and fat like you showed us. But then they didn't sacrifice the mice. They took away the McDonald's food and they gave them back the chow. And you know what happened? The mice wouldn't eat the chow. They literally starved themselves almost to death. So that's food for thought about what a bad diet can do for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't know from the industry people, which is here. I don't know if anybody is from a medical department. Otherwise, Anna, would you like to?
Artur,
Yeah, Antonio, sorry.
Arturo Molina, Chief Medical Officer at Protagonist Therapeutics, and we know Dr. Rao pretty well. We're actually collaborating on a project that has not been disclosed, but at Protagonist, we're developing rusfertide for the treatment of polycythemia vera, and in the process of doing that, we've learned quite a bit about MPNs. I cannot talk about the project right now, but I can say is that we've had a very fruitful collaboration, and now recently we've engaged Dr. Ron Hoffman as well to work and brainstorm on a potential treatment that we are working on that needs further fine-tuning. Sometimes when you're discovering or developing new drugs, you start out with a tool compound where you just want to make sure you're getting the target, but it might require doses that are too high. And then there's the optimization phase where then you optimize the compound so that you preserve the targeting effect that you want, but at doses that are likely to translate into something you could actually give patients. So stay tuned, and I just wanted to recognize Dr. Rao as well, because he's been a wonderful collaborator, and we will continue to work on drug discovery efforts in this field.
So basically for the industry, the cooperation with persons with Rao is vital, because this is where you get from your new products. Is that right?
A lot of the new products do come from collaborations. Some of it is external innovation. Some of it is collaborations with academia. And that's one model that has worked very successfully.
Anna, as you have here, I must have you talking. How is that happening in large companies? Are you also, is your medical department, research department, do they have a lot of contacts with people like this, or is researchers work done by ROA, is that also for a larger pharmaceutical company, a source of information to develop new products?
So I hope I can explain good in English. I think our medical department are moving forward, trying to make more collaboration with people as him and related with studies, taking into account more things like nutrition and habits to increase the quality of life of patients, to make like a whole approach of treatment. But it's difficult for us to get or to give support, financial support to those investigators, but we are trying to do with a global medical team.
Okay, thank you very much. just behind you.
No worries. Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas from Morphosis, as Peter said, and which is a biotech company. And we acquired, for example, Constellation, which was an even smaller biotech company who invented or researched the pelabresib, right, which is now, had amazing phase 3 data, which we developed in the phase 3 trial. And now we got acquired from Novartis as they hope to bring this to market. And my point I wanted to make is that I think it's a whole ecosystem where everybody has a role to play, right? And it's academia who is very early on. Then you have like smaller biotech companies who partner or like who outsource. And fun story is, for example, with pelabresib, 12 years ago, when it was not even in a phase 1 trial, Constellation, got funding from LLS, which is the U.S. patient organization that has this wonderful TAP program where they, also invest and co-invest with the biotech who are looking for funding. And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful program to help also, make connections as we're doing here, to co-fund innovation, and they have been a partner to us ever since. And so that's why I think, it's not right or wrong. It's like, as I think Ruben said, it's also agile, which I love. It doesn't have to be like this like very old school process. Yeah, yes, we need to follow process, but I think it's very, very good and I think will advance science if we are doing this in parallel and be as closely connected as we can be and to make those connections.
Absolutely, Thomas. Mm-hmm.
Now, from patient side, I just would like to know, I mean, you understand the importance, of the work which we're doing and how, if we as patients work closer together, how can we help that, Rao, he can continue his work, and as you see, he works with a lot of blood samples from different patients, which today makes life a bit easier. But I think, we as patients, we somehow we have to stick together and give him the real patient information. How do we feel? How are we reacting on it? Somebody wants to comment on that?
Yeah. So yeah, me as a patient and working with you in the association. First of all, thank you for the very educational presentation. I think it's also needed. For me, it's connecting the dot. I think it was yesterday Ruben Mesa mentioned the misalignment between what patients are looking for as priority and he saw clearly that patients are saying, okay, symptoms treatment is okay, but we want more. No, we want to see that someone is looking for the basics, so for disease modification. So I think as a patient, and confirming what Ruben Mesa mentioned yesterday, we need to see that someone is working on this. I think it's needed. It's needed to see. It's very appreciated that we receive educational in this sense. So yeah, I think voice of patient for me is to confirm the misalignment and the needs of seeing that something is happening on modification disease, going to the fundamental, solving the basic questions, which are the difficult ones. Why this is happening? And so I think it's super important that this part of the community exists, no?
Well, it is. I mean, the problem, but how do we bring? How can we help? But all the work which is doing, but it's finally it ends up to our pharma industry, who then can work a new product out of that.
I think what we're doing here, so giving them voice, I think is for sure relevant. So I think patient association can play a role here, giving voice to this part of the community, and so the other part of the community listening and see the opportunity, and maybe we have to connect the dots. So that's one part, and of course the difficult one will be, helping to the financing, to the allocation of the finance thing, and making this flowing in this direction. But
John, do you think that our project MPN World could be a tool to bring that
I
forward?
think there are two things to say. The first is the role of patient and patient organizations is changing for the good. I think in the last 10 years, in the beginning, we were listening to what researchers were telling us. I think we're slowly growing to a situation that researchers are listening to what we are telling them. Yesterday, one of the slides of Ruben showed that many patients are more concerned about progression than the actual symptoms they have. And if you see the potential of GDF-15, for instance, this is typically something that patients are waiting for. Not just to don't have this painful biopsy anymore, but if this would be an indicator of progression, this is what the majority of patients are looking for. So it's our role to push the research community and the pharmaceutical companies to invest in this kind of solutions. That's point one. The second thing with regard to MPN World, I think by bringing all these patients together, we will have a stronger voice. But not just that. If we have enough detail of patients, then we also provide you a pool of patients in a far more easier way to make selections and make it easier for you to approach patients. I know all the limitations and the legal problems that can be in that way, but there are solutions for this. And once we have this pool of 10, 15, 20,000 patients on this platform, it makes it easier to do a proper inclusion filter and get the right patients for your research.
Absolutely.
So that is
Jan.
one of the
Thank
roles
you.
we want to play as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for bringing the second point. Definitely looking more and more collaboration from my side, especially patient samples, as Marina mentioned. I'm very open to collaboration. I already talked this part to Ron Hoffman, very good discussion and in good terms, and also with Professor Ruben Mesa, I'm very close to what he's doing, and with his expertise, I would like to also team up with people like Ruben Mesa and Ron Hoffman, and my former mentor Radek Skoda, who is now in the US. So they are a bit far from me in Europe, but I think with this, I'm good in connecting in one way. But still, at the finance side in Switzerland, I think it's very expensive. The same research you can do 3 times more in Germany, even the neighboring countries, and in parts the salaries and everything too expensive to do the same research. So if anyone is interested, I'm happy to discuss, to collaborate companies and laboratories and foundations. And also, if you come across anything around here, something, I'll be happy to sneak in and you make use of it for a good reason. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Please. One second. Put your headphones on, please. English speaking.
Sí.
Okay.
Ok. Bueno, mi nombre es Cristina, yo soy paciente de PV y lo que yo demando, y creo que lo hablamos en la última reunión en Valencia, es que no vayan por separado la hematología de los problemas cardiovasculares o el cardiólogo, o como en este caso no vaya fuera de la enfermedad la nutrición. Creo que está poco estudiado y que es como que al final cada uno va por su lado, pero no nos ven. O sea, yo lo que le he dicho hoy de la alimentación, evidentemente sé que la alimentación es importante para todo, pero creo que en España por lo menos no se tiene en cuenta. Y además lo digo de primera mano porque mi hija ha estudiado la carrera de nutricionista. Las prácticas las hizo con un pediatra de tutor, porque no hay nutricionistas. Y cuando uno va al hematólogo no le derivan al nutricionista o al cardiólogo para que te haga ser consciente de que no solamente es el medicamento que te baja los niveles, sino que tienes que aportar mucho más a todo eso, y eso está en la parte del paciente, no está en otro sitio. Entonces, bueno, eso era mi demanda, ¿no? Que creo que se nos debería de ver como un conjunto de situaciones, no solo lo que es cada especialista. Uno mira el hemograma y de ahí no sale. El cardiólogo te hace las pruebas de cardiología, pero tampoco te indica, mira, esto está mal en la analítica, te voy a derivar al nutricionista para que te ayude a controlar todos estos niveles, y creo que sería una parte muy importante. No sé
Bueno,
cómo lo veis.
estamos viviendo en un mundo de especialistas, ¿no? Cada vez los médicos son más especialistas. Cada vez hay menos médicos que quieren ser médicos generales, porque las condiciones no son muy buenas, especialmente aquí en España. Y también luego depende de la enfermedad. Si tú tienes una enfermedad de corazón, te cuidan mucho más en todos esos sentidos, están mucho más organizados. Yo lo he visto porque a mí, bueno, en mi edad cuando vas al médico te encuentran algo. Yo no puedo ir al médico porque es algo pagado. Han encontrado algo de corazón y ellos tienen en el hospital del día, pues tienen un grupo que es mayormente un médico mayor que ya no está en las consultas, y ellos te cuidan, ellos te hablan de todo esto, de no fumes, no bebes, en fin, todo lo que no puedes hacer. Al final no preguntas por qué vivo si no puedo hacer todas esas cosas, ¿no? Pero ellos realmente ahí tienen un seguimiento. Esto realmente en las enfermedades raras existe muy poco. Lo que, por ejemplo, nosotros en la fundación lo que hacemos, tenemos un programa con algunos hospitales en España para crear una enfermera de enlace para los pacientes de MPN. Vamos a tener dentro de poco un programa de piloto en el Hospital del Mar de Barcelona, y que vamos a poner una persona que estará financiado por la fundación. ¿Por qué? Porque, bueno, todos sabemos, si queremos llamar al médico, es que no podemos llamar al médico. Y esto es un problema no solamente de España, sino fuera en Europa, en todos los sitios es igual, ¿no? Entonces, ahí pues esperamos que podemos dar esta información, que esta enfermera luego ya hable más de la nutrición. Ahora bien, con mis charlas con los médicos y cuando estamos con Genfin y con esta gente, la mayor parte de los médicos están ya pensando en esto del comer, ¿no? de la dieta mediterránea y esto, ¿no? Poco a poco está viniendo, pero es que es un problema de las enfermedades raras, es que no falta la infraestructura realmente para ayudar a tan poca gente, ¿no? Y si vamos a niños es peor todavía, ¿no? Porque todavía somos menos. Y ahí somos nosotros como organización que tenemos que ayudar y tenemos que dar el apoyo y la información a los pacientes. Luego el problema es que muchos pacientes no quieren seguir lo que estamos diciendo. Así que es al final siempre un poco. Pero lo que has dicho tienes toda la razón. Estamos totalmente de acuerdo y yo sé que en Holanda hay problemas muy similares, pero ahí ya, digamos, todo el movimiento de pacientes está mucho más avanzados que nosotros, y ellos, tú ves en sus páginas, en sus sitios, tienen mucho más información sobre nutrición. Nosotros mañana, por ejemplo, hablamos de nutrición y tendremos un especialista aquí a ver qué nos cuenta, ¿no? Aunque realmente la tenemos delante de la puerta, que es la mediterránea, ¿no? Y yo he sido el primero de aprender que es una dieta mediterránea, ¿no? Pero es verdad, al fin esta coordinación todavía bueno, pero vendrá, lucharemos para esto, ¿no? Bien, había alguien más que quiere hablar, ¿no? English. Oh yeah, I thought of somebody else now who wanted to talk. Yeah, no. What about how do you do that in France? I know you have your group is very young. Vivre avec une MPN, Karin, qui est which is very active. So I'm switching to French. And you have a very big support from Jean-Jacques Kilijan, which is a big advantage. How do you see this? You know, what we're just talking now, you know, about information from young researchers. How is it working in France?
Well, it depends. Huh? Haruko could speak about Dr. Kalijan in Hôpital Saint-Louis because he is a world-leading expert in that domain. So we, as MPN patients, we also have the opportunity to meet with high-level scientific experts in our field, because they are clinicians. They are doing clinical research, but they are also doing basic research. There is one point that we need to further discuss, I think, is yesterday it was mentioned that we could create a registry of patients to follow up the outcomes and so on and so forth. But what is important for basic research is to create a biobank. So we are used to give our blood to check the counts. But if we give your blood to a biobank, then it will serve to basic research whenever they need to check with some hypotheses. So this is something that we should keep in mind, and that I will discuss with my physician next time I will see him.
Yeah, it's interesting what to say about the biobank. Some of you know I have another foundation in Switzerland, which is composed by the most important hematologists, MPN specialists in Switzerland, which is easy because Switzerland is so small. You know, it's we have all the different cantons where you have your specialists. So we formed the foundation 3-4 years ago, and the idea is, you know, obviously also a register, which we have in the meantime. We have a registry with the analytical data of the Swiss MPN patients. And every hospital is using the same data sheet, which I think is very important. You know, in most of the countries, every center, every hospital still has its own data sheet, and, you know, looks a little bit different, analytical data. We managed to do that in Switzerland also because it's small, and this is how we did it. And some of you may know the name of Radek Skoda. He worked many years with Professor Radek Skoda in his biological department. He was part of the group of physicians who discovered the YAC2. And he is now, he in Basel and in Bern, and in Zurich, we do have biobanks. And as Radek is leaving, all his department will be closed. So, you know, we have a biobank which is existing since 15 years approximately. It has a big value because, you know, all these samples are there. So we are, at this moment, we are negotiating, but this biobank could come in the hands of our foundation. I tell you, the figures we are talking about, it's expensive. You know, it's, and Switzerland is the double expensive. So it's a question of money, but there's no, it's absolutely right. I mean, this is one of the important points, you know, that we have biobanks where we can go back, you know, like I said, he can get blood from hundreds of patients, and the patients don't have to go to him. So but he gets these samples. These are all coming mostly from biobanks. So it's a biobank is something extremely important and simply increases the work which we have to do in our international organizations. You know, we have to provide this. You know, I fully agree there. But it's a very expensive item, and money is not so freely available. It's very good. Thank you. You fight. Who wants to first?
Okay. I have a question to Rao. You said platelets feed on fat, and I have an ET, so would it be rather wisely to cut on fat than sugar? and otherwise fat and sugar, they can be transformed into each other. So how, second question, how does this Mediterranean diet work at all? Because it's quite fatty.
So it's a very, very good question, and actually both questions are very good. I didn't get the time to go into detail. How metabolism, like cancer cells, metabolism also so flexible in general, even when you're healthy, okay? If you provide more fat, at the end also it can convert in the liver to carbohydrate again, okay? So, but that is depend how long you are starved from the glucose or the fat. Okay, but it is entirely even different, even more exaggerated, this reprogramming of metabolism when you have a MPN, like MPN or cancer. So now you're asking question, Rao, if I take fat, if it convert to glucose or sugar, so it doesn't matter if I eat directly the sugar, right? I'm not saying here you should not cut off all. You really reduce, if you have a specific preference, oh, I love Swiss cheese and I like to eat only Swiss cheese, yes, it has consequence on over time on fat, on platelets, for example. No, I don't like fat, but I like Swiss chocolates more, and I only eat Swiss chocolates, then probably it will, long term, it will impact. So what I'm trying to say here is be mindful what you are eating, how much you are eating, and that also a lot of research needed. These are the kind of preliminary primary insights. Again, as Marina said, it's from mouse models. The people started looking in patients, okay? But you need to have that idea definitely should come from the lab, okay? Clinicians, what they do, all the findings, what we do in the lab, they transform, they use that provided by a pharma company. Yes, they test, okay, how much to test, how long to test, and then take the blood counts. But the primary basis, primary idea often in our community is not recognized. In other words, basic scientists are kind of second or third class citizens, I can tell you. It means my little experience, you call it frustration or problem, but it is not often recognized as it should be. Right? Because if you don't have idea how pharma can develop a drug, how a clinician can test it, as Professor Ruben Messer said, we need to understand more biology first. Okay, 20 years now, we know the mutation, and clinicians say, yes, your blood counts are higher. I switched from Ruxo to interferon because clinical trial said, yes, we are using mouse models. I don't have degree to work on patients. Okay. But if I have the same degree, I can also test the same in the mice, what I test in patients. But clinicians have that opportunity, for example. But clinicians should know the biology, right? You need to know both, right? I cannot do everything, and they have a right to do something directly with the patients. So in other words, you need to consult your cancer nutritionist who is well educated, who is teaming up with your hematologist, like colleague said, you guys have to work together in the clinic, right? And they are advocate enough to guide you how much to eat, what to eat if you have PV or ET. Again, what I told you, just take as a basic information. So we are getting there. So these kind of trigger people to think, okay, that study showed, maybe somebody else shows something else. Okay, combine those two, and then bring to the clinic, and then eventually go to. So answering your question, how much to take, what to take, is very premature to say. But be mindful not to take too much the same thing. Okay, so that's the message I can give in a fair way. But it's a very important question you raised, yes.
Let's go to Thomas.
I just wanted to answer a previous question, what we as patients can do, and just report that in Germany we have a bioregister for the MPN patients where all the samples of, I think it's 2,500 patients or 3,000 in the meantime, is located in one city, and they can use it then for that, for the studies and the science.
So thank you. I just wanted to add collaborations, inter collaboration. I have very good experience working with the states and Canada, and it's very difficult to get sample from Germany and France. And the most hardest I found is from France. The most easiest and flexible is from United States. I had a good experience also from Toronto. I had very good access to the sample. The very hardest I found, I tried many times from France. In part, probably cultural things, but also the administrative staff. So they need to have something needs to be approved, whether it can be shared or not. So that is one of the primary hurdle, and also academic competition. People like me, no one. If I come and present, no one cares. The same thing presented by Professor Mesa, for example, and it's like a Nature paper, right? So it's more people read it, right? So those difference, I think we should ignore. We should ignore in terms of, we should focus on the true science, and I think that is very, very important. As a biologist, I'm not self-centric. Both should be important. Fundamental discovery and the clinical investigation, both are very important.
But you see what Thomas says, it's one of the problems which we have in Europe, not only in the bio. You have a little bit here, you have a little bit there. You have it in France, you have it in Germany. I'm sure we have it in Italy. We have it even in the small Switzerland, we have one. But they just keep it for themselves. And he's right. I mean, if I'm going now to ask, it's probably under GSG, who has the biobank, it's very difficult to get a cooperation. And this is our problem. We would like to have more information. And this is why, I'm trying to create here a group of patients that you can help us to have influence in the local organizations. If your biobank in France, I don't want to have a biobank, but at least get information from there, get details, get backup, which we then can put then on disposal of these people. So we would like to be like a catalyst, where we really can bring the things together. And why are we so strong in the States? Most of the money is in the States, and they are much more cooperating to each other. They also have different centers, but you can see, here in the backside we have 3 persons from the industry, American industry. And, we're friends, we know each other, we work together, we exchange information, we exchange results. And this is what we're not doing here in Europe. There is, ChemFin is not working with GSG, and, and it's Europe. Everybody has his own history and wants to keep things for himself. This is, I remember when we were talking about to getting the data from ChemFin into a big organization of Harmony, and they said, no, we are afraid, because if we give it to Harmony, Professor Barboui, he can look at it and he can see our results. We don't want to have that. It's, we have a philosophy still in Europe, based on the history which we have, unfortunately, which makes this life a bit more difficult. But anyway, many hands up now.
But maybe there's a point, it's where we as patient organizations can help, because it's nice that we have that 3,000 patients in that register study in Ulm, but compared to the number of patients we have with MPN in Germany, it's already a small number. So maybe things would just get better if we encourage the patients to really donor their samples for that register, so they don't have to behold it for themselves, because they have so much that they can give it. So maybe there's possibility if we encourage the patients to work with that registers.
Okay, let's keep up these ideas, and then we will try to work on it.
I just wanted to mention really quickly again, and I think Raul already mentioned it. So we, in the US, through the MPN Research Consortium, which is National Cancer Institute sponsored consortium of institutions that's run by Dr. Ron Hoffman, we have a large tissue bank of samples from patients, including sequential samples, and they are available for different researchers throughout the world. So this is, I think, a tremendous resource that is available for basic science researchers with patient samples. And so I think it's just a great resource. I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of it.
A researcher working in Switzerland, can he get
Yes.
cooperate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Baridim. So I had a very good opportunity 2 weeks ago to discuss with Ran Hoffman at the in ESH MPN meeting in France. So that meeting went very fruitful, and Ran, I know him for last decade, 10 years. But this last meeting was really changed to the collaboration side. I'm also hoping that I get some of those samples. Thank you, Marin.
You want to have?
About the question regarding diet specifically for ET, it was about 5 points ago. It's as a practicing clinician, it's a very difficult question to answer. So I think we were discussing yesterday evening. A lot of our patients ask us, what can I do? What should I be eating? How should I be exercising? What kind of lifestyle should I have? People want to be empowered and they want to move their own care for their own disease forward. And I think that's laudable and that should be encouraged, and I think we try and do that as physicians. But we're not quite sure exactly what to answer and how to answer the question. And one of the things that we have to remember is that the vast majority of patients with MPNs will have coexisting diseases as well. And in the Western world, a lot of these will be metabolic diseases. So there'll be high blood pressure, high blood lipids, diabetes, obesity, which is classified as a disease, not to mention smoking. So I think we're looking at the basic biology of metabolism in MPNs, which is fascinating beyond. But in clinical practice, this has to be taken in a context of other health issues, which in and of themselves require treatment. So what I usually tell patients who are perfectly healthy, I say, we don't really know exactly what kind of diet you should be on, just like Raul said, but probably a good rule of thumb would be to maintain as healthy a lifestyle as you can, because if you have a disease in a diseased body or a disease in a healthy body, it's probably easier to deal with it if the rest of your body is healthy, so to speak, and then you can focus on watching your MPN. But most patients don't have a healthy body. They have one of these other underlying diseases, most of which are metabolic, and so that's a big driver, at least for me, as to how to answer your question, which is a specific ET question. But it has, I think, in almost each patient, it has much more global health ramification. Unfortunately, most people are not healthy, especially older people in whom the MPNs are more common overall.
Thank you, Martin, for sharing this. I think it's very important. You also added the comorbidities. MPN patients often have atherosclerosis or cardiovascular symptoms. That's where actually also people now little bit moving direction. If people come to clinic with cardiovascular complications, nowadays they're also taking blood and doing the same NGS sequencing to see if they also have an MPN or JAK2 mutation, for example. That's how people actually finding a connection between comorbidities like cardiovascular and MPN. So in that situation, still, I think it's good to have a nice diet so you can reduce both cardiovascular problem and MPN. I think at the end you have to take a good diet. Mm-hmm.
Our Swiss friends are very quiet. Good.
I think it's very important that the patient organizations in all Europe or all over the world work together. They connect them, you make them with global, but if we in Switzerland to try to make connections with other countries, it's really difficult. It's hard because all the legals, all the rules, and I think every country should start at home to collect the patient, to know who is the patient, where are the patients, and then if we know that, we can bring them to the research, and it would make a lot easier. But we restarted now in Switzerland after COVID, and we tried to get to work with other countries, and I see there are some borders, and we have to move over these borders. And I think the first step is that we bring all the countries together. What you are doing, thank you very much for that. But if I'm here, I don't know if somebody from Italy, from Austria is here. I would really appreciate if it would be possible with the countries around your country work together.
Marcus, can I add one quick thing to that? I think maybe Professor Ruben Mesa and Peter, people like them, should initiate that these things should be done by WHO, World Health Organization, right? Because they are there, I don't know what they're doing. Whenever COVID comes, they pop up. When there's no COVID, you never hear WHO. I think they should invest. WHO, World Health Organization, for example, they should put these and they should sponsor. I think people like Ruben and Peter should go to them and then influence such things. I think that's more realistic. Otherwise, if we fight and we talk about problems, we never get solution for that. I think if you have such big global organization, they should sponsor, then the foundation can run and we will have a nice data set. Right.
No question, but if you don't have to go so far, World Health Organization.
Or like I'm just giving maybe
yeah,
the equivalent one.
Well, we have seen in the recent examples how strong they are, in the war areas, how much they can do. But it is something, that money is available. I think, if we really manage to get the group together as John and me, we want to have it. We can present projects in Europe. The European community has billions available, and it normally goes to the wrong hands. It normally goes to the people who has enough already. But I got some contacts now. We're trying to work on it, and if we will be able to have a real project together, there is money available, and this is not 10,000 euros. It's a big amount of money, and but they want, obviously, it's Europe, so they want to have information. If we bring a project, we need it all supported by all the different countries. I cannot bring it only, from Switzerland would be too small. They wouldn't look at it, and we're not in a common market. But even bring from Holland, from Spain, it's not enough. You really have to bring it together. This is why, for us, these meetings are so important that we can work together. So, that we will definitely be done. I won't go so up like the World Health Organization, but on the idea, you're absolutely right. Now, I still would like to have one opinion of one person, which is here, which is for me very valuable, which is Laura. You are one of our main specialists of MPN in Spain. You have a very wide view of what is happening. I don't know if you know Rao, but if not, you will have.
Now I do.
You can talk to him. You are in the middle. You are a physician who has every week, 50, 60 MPN patients, which you're having. How do you see all that change? All what we are talking now this morning. What is your opinion about it?
Well, it's a big complex picture what we
is,
are talking, because there are many kind of different aspects. I think that it's true that all this kind of investigation, the biological, the clinical investigation, the clinical trials, they are different things, but they go together. And sometimes it's difficult to going together to this point, because what we want is to resolve this problem, but we need different people working in different areas. For example, talking from my side, during the week I have no time to go to the lab. I just see patients, and all the ideas, because you need questions. That is what he said. We need questions to investigate, to know where start from or what to investigate. It's not I'm going to investigate MPMs. It's that is you need questions and you need to answer questions. And sometimes these questions don't. They can be born in the lab. They can be born in the physician office, and we need to work together. And I can do Ro's work, and he cannot do my work, and we cannot do the pharmaceutical work, because the day has only 24 hours. And this is quite important, because we are working on that because we, for example, what we do in HEMFIM, trying to get this registry that is clinical information that biological investigator needs, that we need to find answers, different kind of answers. For example, maybe from these clinical registries, we find answers on maybe, I don't know, the dose of aspirin or how well we do some kind of treatment. And these answers are needed, but we need also to collaborate. And sometimes it's not easy to work with the biological, the primary investigation. So we need to do the biological, the translational investigation, the clinical investigation. We need to do that. And for that, we need time and people. and I think probably that's where we have main problems, at least in Spain. But we all keep doing. And I think that the fact that we are all here on Saturday and trying to find out, this means that we really want to do it. We really want to work on that. And people like Roy, I'm for sure that he's always looking for the money for the investigation. That is really hard. And that also takes time, because I think that the best work can do is be in the lab thinking and working, not searching for money. So we need to find people that can do that work, because we have to do a lot of paperwork to get how do you say, Becca?
Ethics approval? Ethics approval, for example.
Sponsorship, that one. We need to do, for example, in Spain, there is a big kind of project that is national project that you can get money to do an investigation. But you have to work almost a year to fill up all the paperwork to try to get approved. And it's really difficult because maybe there are 10 projects for whole Spain, for whole pathologies, for everybody. So all that paperwork, all this problem with financiation, I think this is something that there should be maybe a commission that you take your idea and they see how they can get money to do that investigation, for example. I think the way we have to do the things to do investigation, clinical, biology, all these parts that are all important, is really difficult because of this, because of the bureaucratic problems, the paperwork, and kind of things. And that will help a lot to make things flow easier. And I think that people really want to collaborate, and we need to cross those boundaries that we are talking, that they are real. Europe is not one country, as US, it's many countries, and that makes things quite difficult. And for example, this that you were talking about, the Harmony, this project, I have my doubts if that is the answer. I think that is one tool, one other tool, but it's not the answer to keep all this machine working. And I think that the role of the patients and association that are starting to push to make themselves hear, that is quite important. Because, for example, something that we have talked many times is that, for example, clinical trials, that you have many questionnaires, many work, but I think that patients should be involved in this kind of investigation more properly, not only as the people that is being studied. They have to be involved in the design of these clinical trials, for example. And a good thing is that to know that things are moving and where the problems are is going to help us to keep on researching and keep on resolving problems.
Sure. There are many movements going into this direction. You know, for example, I am a member of one of the boards of Hospital del Mar. You know, and it's an expert group They are every 2 weeks, they are deciding which clinical trial will be accepted or not and under which condition. And now since about 2 months, I am assisting to these meetings as a patient representative. So, they are trying to get my opinion as a patient, which is not always easy if we talk about a myeloma or we talk about the breast cancer, whatever it is. But still, you can give a general information because many symptoms which we are having as patients, they are identical in many other illnesses too. So I think this is very valuable. I know also Via de Bron is having an initiative to include patients into certain decisions where we are participating. So it's coming slowly but surely. And also the things which we're discussing here today, we're still talking basics. We are basically below his level, before he even starts with mouses. We haven't reached the mouses yet. So we're trying. Actually, what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do, and John is trying to do, is we're trying to find a common basis. You're absolutely right. We have a lot of obstacles to go through, a lot of them. Not only internationally, but also locally, inside of Spain, for example. You have different problems. But, let's take every problem as a challenge. And, we will be able to make it. Thank you anyway. El jefe primero.
Okay. I just wanted to reply to Laura. From the association point of view, we are always trying to look for ways of connecting and doing things. And it came to my mind, I work in the industry, I'm an engineer, and we have kind of the same problems. Every day we have to do our turnkey projects and sell the products and keep the company going. But we also need to dedicate some of our resources to research and innovation, because that's what keeps us in the top of the technology and allow us to be on the forefront of the business. And we also apply for help to the administration for research, and we have the same kind of problem. You have to take people out of their computer to fill up tons of documents to apply for one of these helps in research. And we use the help of external companies that dedicate themselves to that they're very good at it. So maybe from the association, we could dedicate some of our funds and the money that we gather for these kind of events and for other activities, maybe to give you that support. If you are keen and developing something, you have your mind in something that you believe is going to be interesting, and you don't have the time to go to the lab, you don't have the time to go to the computer to type all those forms, maybe there we can help. We are not medical physicians or stuff, but maybe we can look for the resources if we don't even have that. So just keep that in mind.
So I was just going to build on a bit of what Peter had said, really regarding kind of your potential roles as patient advocates, really both with the healthcare system, and centers that are dealing with both patients with blood diseases as well as with cancers. And I think this is more and more the standard and is incredibly helpful, from a range of perspectives. And sometimes perhaps, how we're using it in the States can be more proactive. So one, we have what are called patient and family advisory committees, and there are multiple of them that really help to provide guidance on a range of things. So for example, again, regarding actually care that is received. And again, you guys have a unique perspective. What is it like to go through a phlebotomy? How does one expedite the process of people that need repeated phlebotomies, or for receiving blood tests, or communicating around the results of blood tests? Two, clearly in the clinical trial process. clinical trials have become exponentially more complicated. And I think something that has been helpful in helping to curtail some of that has really been patient advocate involvement, really providing a lens of really what is reasonable to ask people in terms of participating in a study. If the study says, oh, I think it'd be very nice if we had a bone marrow done weekly so that we could track the change in the bone marrow, wouldn't that be scientifically interesting? But ridiculous to ask an actual person to have to undergo those number of bone marrows. So these sorts of things. Oh, well, we'd like you to get the blood test done at the study center, on a daily basis. I think it'd be very nice to track the hemoglobin every single day for 2 years so that we could track that very nicely. So there's a lot of these things that come up that are absolutely ridiculous, but you really need the lens of, actual people that would need to go through it to really push back and kind of give that sort of perspective. And that's why, actually, Peter, your perspective, it could be disease independent. You may know less about breast cancer, but again, as an astute person who interacts with patients, again, you have a sense of, what is reasonable and fair and what is not. What I ask of people at our center is to use what we call the loved one standard, meaning if we would not want our own loved ones, my mother, my wife, my child, to go through whatever we're asking someone to do, then we shouldn't do it. And likewise, as we provide care, we'd want it to be at the level that someone that we love would have to go through. What compassion is there? Is the signage clear? Are people confused as to where to go? There are many things that add stress in the medical process. So it's all of you are clearly super engaged. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at a meeting like this anyway. So in many ways, you have the opportunity to really kind of drive that change. Because many of these things in the States really arose from people saying, we want a seat at the table to be able to provide input in a range of ways. And having an MPN, you fall a little bit in between different groups. There's kind of one group that are patients with active solid tumors. And these are very different diseases, sometimes cared for in the same centers, but dramatically different in terms of the medications and things that are involved. Likewise, even in heme malignancies, the arc of an MPN is very different than acute leukemia or lymphoma, or multiple myeloma. So its own unique thing, but your guys' voice in many of these things is incredibly helpful. And if in your country this really hasn't arisen, that's where, again, I think kind of your national groups can really help to drive this. And sometimes just doing it well at one center as an example helps it spread to the other centers. Because sometimes once people have seen what is that impact at one particular center, then it's like, oh, well, boy, that was really helpful, and then help to extend it. So Peter, thank you for doing that, because I think that can help to impact a range of things. But those in which you find that there's less of that, certainly, be those advocates for change.
Well, I can't do it alone, so I need the help of all of you. It's a big burden. By the way, if it's short, we will have a coffee break. Professor Rumesa, he will leave us at 12:30. So, if any questions you still have to him, grab him before he leaves, yeah? So it's, we're having, we're having a coffee break at 11:45. Please.
I just want to say that for all that money, Peter, you say that has the European Union that sometimes goes through the wrong hands. Sometimes, as not always, for the high-level politicals, we are numbers. So we need to be the largest numbers as we can, as association, because that means votes. So I think that it's really important to grow every association, because those numbers can decide. They agree or not agree with our positions more that if are right or wrong. So I think that that's important because it can make them decide to support or not, more than the rights, just the numbers sometimes. It's sadly, but I think it's true.
There's no question but the number is important, yeah. And we definitely need the cooperation. But I want to give you an example. We are now in Facebook in Spain. We are 1,000 members, yeah. We have about 350 PV patients. You know that we are in a battle with the government to get one of the pharma products released, yeah. And I have been many things to try to get it released. We even got an Italian professor flying into Madrid explaining everything. I have asked in Facebook, everybody, to every PV patient, please send me a mail and complain about that you don't have that product. I will collect it, and with all your letters, I'm going to the ministry. 3 replies. 3 out of 300. And that hits you, I'm going to every autonomy which we have in Spain. I talk to the top sanitary people. Making trips. I make 1,000 kilometers a day just to see people. We make it virtual. I went to Madrid to the Congress to talk to people, which was excellent, So we're doing a lot of efforts, but when you see, well, it looks like the patients don't worry about it. It's, you can do whatever you want, I mean, here you can see that we have many people who is ready to spend the weekend and to talk about these things. But very often the reply which you get, from the community is very limited. Holland, for example, is different. Holland has a different mentality. The patient has a different mentality. And also we have a problem that PV, many patients, they don't have symptoms. They have, quiet life. So they're not going into the page of MPN. So, there are a lot of reasons for it, but sometimes it's very difficult. So we start already in our own organization with a problem of motivation. And I'm pretty convinced that exists in our countries, probably the same thing. So, but I think also there in between of all of us, we have to stimulate people to be more cooperative. So, anybody else?
So a few things. I have worked in pharma for many years, more than 20 years.
You have to eat it.
Yeah. Well, a few things. We discussed about collaborations with scientists and so on. Well, I have to say that pharma is huge, it's big. So for you, things like that, I can see that maybe in preclinical, clinical, they will do a collaboration with you. But it have to be a reason as well behind why do we want to collaborate with you.
Sure.
It's not only because, well, we see that it's good for the patients, but also what is in there for us. And it's awful to say, but it is what it is. Then I have seen as well a shifted from what they believe the patient wanted to, okay, we cannot do anything without the patients. We have really to hear them. What do they want? So the quality of life is really important, is crucial. So you mentioned about nutrition, and I think that more and more they're looking at not only we provide a treatment, but what is more for the patients? What is the holistic treatment? It's not just because I give you a treatment, but if you are having a diet that is poor, the treatment is not going to work the way they want the treatment to work. So I think in there is a lot of opportunities for collaborations with pharma industry. Then we discussed about the data. I mean, biobanks, there are fantastic biobanks in the Nordics, but then you have to go there with a protocol and a study. What do you want to study? How do you want to do it? But you don't have the money. So you know the protocol and everything. Again, you need collaborations. You need collaboration with a sponsor as well. How do we do that? So my point is, I think we really need everybody involved. It's just the pharma industry, the physicians, of course, the patients as well, to say, okay, this is really what is important for us. And we are going from, what was important was the survival. Okay, we give you that and you will survive 5 years. Not anymore. We want more. We want quality of life. It's not about how many years do you want to live. It's how do you want to live these years as well? And how do you have this voice to say, okay, that is enough. It's not only this. I want to really live well. Association with Europe, great. It's true, numbers. But we're so different, and we have the DPR as well, and that is a huge thing when we're trying to get data. And today, data is gold. Yeah. So you see all these breaks that they put because they don't want to provide data. They say, what do you want that? Because it's money at the end of the day. So we really need to think how we can maybe learn for sharing experience from other countries like the Nordics. They have fantastic biobanks in there, and they are happy to share the data. Like how we collaborate together with more associations in Europe. And pharma, of course, we need them to sponsor the studies, but we have to go with a narrative of what is in there as well for them to work with us, because obviously it's a benefit for all of us.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.